Hi everybody and welcome to Beyond Politics. Today we're going to be speaking about a piece of legislation that has flown under the radar while everyone's been focusing on nothing but land expropriation without compensation, as well as Trump and Elon Musk's comments with regards to the matter. But as usual, when something is really trending in the media, I often ask myself what are we being distracted from? And there's a bill far more sinister than you can ever imagine that ties in with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we are not in agreement with, personally. The government is. And we're going to explore that today.
So if you look at the GNU, or Government of National Unity, as they call it, we don't see it as that. It's just a bunch of people working together to implement international agendas. And if you look at this GNU, you will see that the ANC and the DA are basically doing what they want. They are caucusing together and doing things without the other parties. And one very important thing that both the ANC and the Democratic Alliance have in common is that they are implementing the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And in light of the land expropriation bill that has been signed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, do not be surprised that everyone is protecting him in the media right now for what he has done and attacking America. It's very convenient at this time to have a common enemy, when behind the scenes, what we are going to expose you to now, and someone in the farming community made us aware of this, will make it clear what is actually happening. And it's always far worse than what people think, right?
So, a long time ago, Klaus Schwab wrote The Fourth Industrial Revolution. In the introduction to the book Fourth Industrial Revolution, he describes nations in the past as being, separate ships on the ocean, sailing and doing their own little things. Now he describes in the new world that we're all on one ship and we all cabins in a ship. Each country is a cabin on a ship. And that's basically what we're going to see here in this bill. No single country within the new framework, the new global framework, and we're still going to go through that. We're still going to go through the WEF's governmental structure for the world. But before that, in this new framework, not one single country is going to be completely independent. Countries have to depend on each other. It is imperative for a sustainable and peaceful future. However, I absolutely do not agree. I believe in sovereignty of nations to protect sovereignty of individuals. But what we have in this juncture in our current world right now is a clash of ideologies. One where you have to sacrifice the individual and sacrifice freedom for the greater good, and one where we maintain individuality and protect humanity.
So we're going to look at this act. We're going to look at the Constitution with regards to land expropriation. And the one important point I want to make is that the Democratic Alliance actually campaigned during the 2024 national elections on doing away with BBEE and implementing or replacing it with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. That this is what they are implementing. And you will see that the DA is in lockstep with the African National Congress with regards to all of this. And I think many DA voters are going to be very shocked and surprised. And I don't want to say we warned you. I understand why people believe them over so many years. And the fact that we already knew in 2017 that this was happening has set us on a completely different course. And I understand that people are clevering up to this. They're becoming more informed. And because of that, they might change their minds and start looking at things differently. And at the moment, I think both the ANC and the Democratic Alliance will hemorrhage voters because of many of these things that they are doing.
A lot of people are awake. A lot of people have already said those are just two wings of the same bird. Absolutely,
yes,
because
absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's the global agenda that is being implemented.
Funded by the same people.
So here is a press release. President Cyril Ramaphosa assents to preservation and development of the agricultural land bill. So I'll just highlight some statements here. That should make your skin crawl because you'll hear the similarities between the UN's Agenda 21. So President Cyril Ramaphosa has assented to the Preservation and Development of Agricultural Land Bill, which is directed at ensuring that agricultural land supports long-term food production and that agriculture contributes to economic growth. Now that sounds wonderful. Who doesn't want long-term food production, right?
Until you add the control part.
So the law creates an enabling environment for the development of the agricultural sector and an increased contribution by this sector to economic growth. Okay, sounds great, right? The law supports government's objectives and priorities in respect of the sustainable management and use of natural resources. Remember, according to those who purport a more global stance on governance, tend to think that human beings are a parasite to this earth. And it's important to keep in mind as we discuss what this bill actually means. The law seeks to protect and preserve agricultural land and its productive use to ensure that agricultural land is available and viable for the development of the agricultural sector. Again, sounds great until you actually get into the bill itself. And I've, in the course of being involved in politics, can't count how many bills I've read. And I've actually reached the point where when I read these sentences in bills, I want to vomit. Because I can absolutely understand there's task teams and consultants and advisors all coming together in a room in their fancy offices with their nice cars and hotel stays and breakfast, lunch, supper provided for them, discussing the problems and solutions from a very theoretical perspective, applying United Nations agenda goals and doing everything very much in their head, very much theoretical, and not actually being in touch with the suffering on the ground and the practicality of actually delivering on this.
They're not farmers. These people aren't farmers. They are academics. And my father always said that academics will be the end of this planet.
That is one thing I absolutely agree with him on.
Yeah, one thing. But there's very important things in this bill. You're going to go through them now and think how this ties into land expropriation, people.
We don't want to read all 32 pages,
No.
but we're going to put the link in there for you. We'll just cover some of them. And
this is from the government website, by the way.
Yeah.
Not some conspiracy website.
So they have a definition of what sustainable agriculture means. It's a whole long one. We won't go
But
into
I
that.
do want to read the first part. Farming practices that conserve land, water, plant and animal genetic resources and are environmentally non-degrading, technically appropriate, economically viable and socially acceptable.
This is what I hate about
Wow,
these
tie
documents.
that into land expropriation. I'm being serious now. So if you're not doing things according to that, and think NASA planes flying doing surveys of agricultural land, drones doing surveys of agricultural land, and think Hunger Games, think districts, where each district has to do very specific things. Think of that in terms of agriculture.
On that note, a little bit of a side topic here, branching off from the main topic, but has anyone actually Googled or downloaded Google Earth and had a look at their latest 3D modeling of the planet? I felt extremely violated when my son showed me, because you can see our cars, you can see everything in our garden.
At an angle.
At an angle. You can actually see how deep everyone's pool is. You can see everything. You won't be able to hide the fact that you're building in your backyard. There's nothing you can hide right now from the global government structure.
And we're going to tie this into your solar panels, your water tanks in your backyard from when everyone in Cape Town was worried about day zero, etc. We're going to tie it into that right at the end and see how this is going to affect you. Don't just think farmers, okay? They will come after everything.
This is about a threat of the individual. And that is what's terrifying. So yeah, let's just read the objects of the Act.
Individual sovereignty, especially.
So the objects of the Act are to promote the preservation and sustainable development of agricultural land, establish evaluation and classification systems for agricultural land.
Monitoring, tracking and tracing.
And classifications, demarcate protected agricultural areas to ensure that agricultural land is preserved and protected against non-agricultural uses in order to promote long-term agricultural production. So if you think of it from a very social perspective, this is actually decreasing a citizen's access to land ownership in the name of agricultural security. Very clever.
Very clever.
Implements a coordinated national framework including norm standards and authorizations for the use of agricultural land to promote and encourage viable farming units from a long-term economic, environmental and social perspective. Discourage land use changes from agricultural to non-agricultural uses to prevent the fragmentation of the agro-ecosystems and facilitate concurrent land uses on agricultural land without jeopardizing long-term food security. Food security for who?
For who?
I don't think it's going to be for us, because if you look at Klaus Schwab's model, you can read the Fourth Industrial Revolution yourself, the book that he wrote. Countries will be supplying, certain countries that are earmarked for specific things will be providing the rest of the world with those things. And we know currently, is it Norway, where food is so expensive they actually travel to Sweden to buy groceries and then go back home? Can you just imagine how South Africa has the potential to be used, land kept away from the citizens, used for providing the rest of the world and probably world elites, probably the wealthiest in the world, with food that comes from our soil and our people. Can you imagine?
Our food export market's far bigger than the market of food being supplied here.
Absolutely.
From our local farmers at the moment. You are getting the scraps in South Africa.
Last thing I'm going to quote, this is a 32-page document, you can read the rest, but this act applies to all agricultural land within the Republic. This act binds all organs of state in the national and local spheres of government and provincial sphere of government. So there's no escape.
Are subject to Section 146 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
You will see the land expropriation. If you look at the Constitution, and Lauren will read just now what it says on land expropriation. Okay? This is not what they are using to bring the land expropriation bill to fruition. They are using a section that says that there needs to be equality in the restitution and many other things with regards to land based on the past. That is the part in the Constitution that's being used for that bill. And it conflicts with this part of the Constitution where it speaks of the fact that you have a right to own land, that it cannot just be taken away from you. I mean,
well, that's why there are those clauses.
Yes.
That land will only be expropriated under certain conditions. But the way I see it is that you never give government more power than you absolutely have to.
And they tell you it's with compensation, and only if it serves the interest of the broader public, not government.
This is what's enraging. The government gets about R1 trillion rand in tax every single year. Why are they not providing the homeless and people without their own title deed with land when there's more than enough space and more than enough tax money to actually put together programs to house people? So instead, government failure is another gateway into introducing laws and legislation in line with global government systems such as the World Economic Forum's frameworks, as well as the United Nations Agenda 21, stemming from the United Nations Agenda 21, and it's Agenda 21, not for 2021, but for the 21st century. A lot of people don't get that right. And stemming from that agenda are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and they are things like equal access to education for all, eradicating poverty and hunger. Sounds wonderful, but all of it is just a ruse in order to take away what makes us human and what makes us free, to the point where no one will own anything. Just like what Klaus Schwab says, you'll own nothing and be happy. And be happy, I don't understand that part. Maybe we should take a leap of faith. I don't think so, though. You own nothing and be happy. You'll be rationed. Food will more than likely come from a lab. And the problem is with land is that South Africa is more than spacious enough to house everyone and more. We have a huge country with a lot of open spaces. However, we are naturally drawn towards city centers. Now, we have 8 metros in the country, some of which are growing, some of which are collapsing. Either way, it's been the National Development Plan of South Africa, their goal to have, 70% of the population living in cities by 2030. And then more later.
And we're at 68%.
We're almost there. And
it was the opposite way around.
It's not only our National Development Plan's goal, it's the goal of the United Nations Agenda 21.
Worldwide.
To have at least 70% of the population, I think they actually increased it recently, living in cities, metros. And it's very easy to control humans that way. But unfortunately...
And monitor, track and trace them.
A plan always looks good on paper. When you see it implemented, I believe it's going to look like no one owning any property, being subject to government authority, in the sense that if you're not a good citizen, you might not have access to the kind of flat that you want, for instance. Your medical care, your transportation, your right to start a business or anything like that will be controlled by how much of a good citizen you are, just like what we've seen in China with regards to the social credit scoring system.
But that's exactly what's being implemented here. If you look at NHI, it's putting everything in the hands of government. this is with regard to land, is putting everything in the hands of government. And this is a global plan. You need to understand, to create a one world government, which is the plan of the World Economic Forum and many other international groups, you need to break down governments, and through them controlling the people first, put the infrastructure in place, using our tax money to enslave us completely, where you lose more and more freedom, to the point where the agricultural sector can't help you anymore. But I said at the end we will go further, because in your house in the metro, you will now be controlled. You will not be allowed to just grow any food. They will be doing surveys to see what you are doing. And it's being done already. Your privacy is already being encroached upon. They're going to look and see how many rainwater tanks do you have in your yard, because it makes you self-reliant. They don't want self-reliant citizens.
So this is what's probably going to happen. You're going to have some people with some foresight growing some things from seeds, maybe some tomatoes and spinach, maybe you have some rainwater saved in a tank. Now, in dire times, that will probably be expropriated for the rest of the community. And unfortunately, the smart city model, to me, goes hand in hand. It's not spoken of, but to me, it goes hand in hand with rationing. All human beings need water, energy, food, clean air as well, although we don't have much control over that. But we definitely need water, food, and energy. And in a smart city model, it's so easy for all of those things to be rationed to us. You only get so many liters of water today, and you only get so much food, which you can go collect at the community kitchen or whatever. We don't know what grocery shops will look like in the smart city model when things start to fall apart. So imagine everything's rationed. Imagine all food is grown in a lab, because meat farming is bad, remember. Everything is geared towards undermining the family unit and undermining the literal physical strength of the individual, undermining innovation, undermining intellect, undermining everything that's ever made humanity good. And we need to guard against this. So while the news media outlets are going crazy about Trump and Elon Musk
and many other social media platforms
without
too,
compensation, have a look at what bills are actually flying under the radar. You can go to PMG, I think, pmg.co.za, if I'm not mistaken, the Parliamentary Monitoring Group, and you can just have a look every day. What's being looked at? What white papers are they? What's being proposed? What's being passed? You can have a look and be informed.
But mostly, subscribe to this channel if you want to get the real information beyond politics. Because politicians will flout their politics all over the place. The mainstream media will throw it out there in the way that they want you to see it. Here on Beyond Politics, we will give it to you with a proper lowdown of what is happening behind the scenes. What is beyond the politics that you are seeing in the mainstream media. And the many other social media outlets that are what I call political clowns, that is just putting news out there that is sensational. At Beyond Politics, we will give you whatever you need to know to remain as free as possible. And if you go to our website, www.beyondpolitics.co.za, you will find free training that we provide citizens to prepare for this. We've known about this for a long time, Lauren and I. We have documents in our possession that speak about these plans that come from the 80s and the 70s and the 90s. So this is not news to us. To actually see it take place is shocking. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic kicked that off for us, and that's why this channel exists. So please subscribe to this channel. Like the videos, click the bell icon so you can get notifications when we put out new videos. Go and watch our past videos. There's many that we've put out that are important to put the little puzzle pieces together.
And stay free. Do everything you can to stay free, because government will take all the power it can. Doesn't matter what government. Doesn't matter which party is in control. It's just the nature of government to take more power and control citizens more, and we need to stop that. It's citizen action that will stop that.